Hey, good morning. That theme tells you that fun and education are on the way, at least on this Rumble channel. Good morning. This is Wake Up Patriots. Ed Henry's Wake Up Patriots. Good morning, Ed. Our evil overlord is probably watching. He always does. He's like that great power behind the scenes. Don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right? And someone who is not behind the curtain and is pretty much out in the open is Chris Cordani. Good morning, Chris.
I'm out in the open. Am I the opposite of Lindsey Graham?
I don't know. So I don't know, but I found a video of Lindsey Graham doing a performance for the Fourth. I know I sent you that. I don't know if you have it ready to go, but
I'll have to grab that. Give me a few moments.
Yeah.
I will grab that for you.
My friend Dina Martin, her dad Dean is in it with him. I know it's hard to believe that Dean Martin knew Lindsey Graham, but it's true, right? You've heard it here first, folks. Lindsey Graham was friends with Dean Martin. Dean is going to kill me next time she sees me. She's going to have her husband beat me up. Anyway.
Hopefully she's not watching this particular portion of the episode.
Oh, she'll hear about it. We've all got a lot of mutual friends.
Then you're in deep snuts. There we go.
Yeah, we have a lot of 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and so I think she'll
5 degrees of Tony Shaffer at this point. Wouldn't that be it?
Yeah, I think that's true. So I don't know. I don't have Kevin Bacon issues. I don't think Kevin Bacon is kind of ever since Footloose, he's been kind of on a downhill trajectory, but I digress.
I don't know. I didn't even like Footloose when it came out, to be honest.
I didn't like Footloose. I still don't get the point of Footloose.
Exactly. I mean, who the heck would ban dancing? I mean, and John Lithgow of all people. I mean, come on. He's a dancer and prancer on his own. But anyway, that's another story for another day. I do have your video.
Oh, good. Let's go. So, folks, this is an exclusive here on Wake Up Patriots. I'm hoping this is going to wake you up, right?
I think it will.
Here's Lindsey Graham. Here's Lindsey celebrating the Fourth. There he is. Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham.
What are you getting at, Ralph?
There he is, Senator Graham.
Where'd you get him? I've had hot pants since I was 12 years old.
That's Lindsey. Hot pants, Lindsey.
Yesterday, the styles were very...
He sings better than Lindsey, though.
Proper. A plain black suit, a white tie, and a topper. Oh, yeah. But today...
Today.
What's happening?
So that's the Dean Martin show.
Yes. Dean comes on later. Yeah,
he comes on later. Hey, I read that Dean Martin liked not doing the dress rehearsals and doing the show live, letting everybody else do their rehearsals and everything else. Then when he did the show live, it would surprise him. Right. And that's why he'd laugh as our show.
I was surprised.
You see him breaking out in laughter during the sketches because he just wanted to be surprised. And I thought that was brilliant. Dean Martin was brilliant. He was a hero of mine. He was my favorite rat pecker.
I love Dean. I love Dean Martin. I used to remember as a kid watching him every evening, because I'm that old. So
he got the babes.
So yeah. And then Dina Martin's a friend of mine, his daughter, and Dina's cool. She's chill. And then we were all friends through Tony LoBianco and Elise LoBianco. So that's the connection. And Dina carries on the tradition. She does a lot of performances, does a lot of charity work, tons of charity work. And I think Dean Martin did that too. I think he was pretty much into all that stuff quietly behind the scenes. But yeah, I think one of the things I've learned from people like you're one of my friends and mentors because I've learned a lot from you. Jerry Doyle, my friend Jerry Doyle, actor and radio guy, and my friends at WMAL. Going in cold is sometimes kind of cool if you know what you're doing, right? I mean, it does add to, yeah.
It depends on the person. I know you like when I know you like going in cold and you like throwing me curveballs, but I think that's good for both of us.
It's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
It adds anything that's too scripted is too boring in my book.
Right.
And a nice combination of being, we prep well.
A little bit script. Yeah, we prep.
Yeah, we prep.
I mean, I was prepping. Yeah.
Right. We prep, but we don't always script, and we don't like the script because.
No, I think it's a good distinction with a difference. We prep, but we don't script. I think that's the.
Yeah, and I'm nearsighted, so if I'm scripted, I'd be looking like this and trying to read this way. So that wouldn't be good. I can't read a teleprompter.
But I don't think it. But people, Patriots, it doesn't take someone to be nearsighted to see Lindsey Graham wearing hot pants like in that last video. So that's kind of good.
I have to see if I can dig up that picture again.
So if you see Senator Graham this weekend running around South Carolina, just tell him you appreciate the hot pants look and he should do it more often. As a matter of fact, you should do it on the floor of the Senate. He and Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, can you see those two together in hot pants? That could be, wow.
I don't
think
know.
about a trifecta. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Lindsey Graham in hot pants on the Senate floor. That my friends, is man, that's political gold right there. And Chucky Schumer could probably do something too. I don't know.
Yeah, he'd wave his arms in his hot pants. Yay, look at me. I'm chanting again. Yeah, isn't that great? Oh, yeah, that would be fantastic.
So is Jerry Nadler or Chuck Schumer really the Joker from Batman? I don't know. They're so similar in so many ways.
I don't know.
Jerry Nadler is kind of the Danny DeVito Joker, right?
And Danny DeVito is the Penguin.
A Penguin.
And
My
that
mistake. Penguin.
Yeah, that would be.
Right.
I believe that would be Nadler. Yeah.
Nadler.
Let's see.
Nadler is the Penguin.
Look at that. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to pull up I'll pull up something. I definitely think it's Nadler. Obviously, it would have to be Nadler. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is the cartoon rendition or a cartoon rendition of the Penguin, and it looks a lot like Jerry Nadler, although the Penguin's in better shape. There you go.
So I think this predated the Penn's undergarments, so the guy had to have like a lot of padding. Nadler has a better advantage because I think he has those hot pant Depends. Speaking of hot pants, to say. So yeah.
Oh, I'm with you too. The only problem I'd say with Nadler being the Penguin is I prefer, or at least Nadler was really the guy who played Dr. Sweetchuck in Police Academies 3 and 4, or not Officer Sweetchuck in Police Academy 4, and of course Mr. Sweetchuck in Police Academy 2. I don't remember. 3 and 4. I guess 3 and beyond he was an officer. I can't keep track of all 7 movies. But there we go.
It's too much to track. It's too much for one man to track. Don't worry about it, Chris. It's
Nadler's Officer Sweetchuck.
I wouldn't.
We all know that Joe Biden was played, or at least Joe Biden played Commandant Lassard. There we go.
And he played it well. And it's Goldfish. No, I back on, I was the 2020 National Security Advisor. Part of my job was to do editorials, which I did. And I would often, and if people go back and check my account, by the way, I'm almost back up to pre-purge numbers. A bunch of us were purged. Chris knows this. We were all purged about January of 2021 as part of that. I'm almost back up to pre-purge numbers on my followers. I think it's more, but I was up to 135,000 followers. I'm back up to 129.5. So it's taken some time. I was down below 100,000 for a while there, So we'll see how that rolls, but it's been.
Here's a picture. Here's a picture of Jerry Nadler and John Fetterman together before Fetterman got the before he grew the goatee.
They were good. They were good law enforcement officers. They were pretty good with handcuffs. I think handcuffs was their specialty. I think
that's how they befriended Lindsey Graham.
That's right.
All right, this is getting bad.
Right.
All right. Want to get into a little more serious matter?
Well, yeah, you've got the script, so go ahead.
Oh.
No,
we don't
prep. Go forward. Go forward and do whatever.
I'm watching this Zoran Mamdani.
Man,
Zoran Mamdani
Hochul was tweeting in support of him this morning. It's like, really? Oh, keep going. Sorry.
She kind of has to, because they're going to have to work together if he wins. Also, I don't think she wants Andrew Cuomo to win, because I'm sure she's one of the people who pushed him out for her own gain. But I'll digress from that. I cannot say that for sure. I am just making the accusation.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you're right on that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, we can read between the lines. But check it out. The Zero Hedge put it nicely. Post-college whites voted for Zoran Mamdani in droves. And let me tell you something. They call them post-college whites. I call them pseudo-intellectuals. These are the people with social justice degrees, gender studies degrees, or some kind of other useless degree that they come out with because they want to feel better about themselves. Many of them are spoiled, grow up in areas like, what's her name? Jasmine Croquet, or the other posh chick, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And they want to show
Sandy.
Right, Sandy Olsen. There, they want to show people how woke they are, how they love diversity. But the fact is, this guy, and you see this video of him like chomping on rice with his hands and yammering on.
Yeah.
About,
So let me cover this.
Yeah.
Let me cover this for the Patriots. So the Arabs. Does he identify as an Arab? I know he identifies as a terrorist, but that's a separate issue. So Arabs
in his neighborhood.
living in the desert, they don't have a lot of supplies. If you're running around on camel, by the way, Chris, traveling by camel, it's not optimal. They kind of spit, they're stinky, kind of like hippies from the 60s. They're just kind of like that, except you can't ride hippies from the 60s. You can ride a camel, but you can't ride a hippie. I think it
depends on how much pot you're on if you want to.
Yeah, I know.
That's another story.
We should get Cheech and Chong on the show to talk about that sometime. I'm friends with Cheech. Cheech Merritt and I are friends on X. I don't know if you knew that.
I think there's another movie.
Yeah,
they're apparently coming out with another movie. I will have to.
But there's no camels in that movie. And I got to get back to camels. So
right.
So in the desert, on a horse with no name. No. That's a different song. In the desert, you got to do things with your hands. That's not a lyric out of the song either, but it's true. So let me explain to the Patriots who haven't been to the desert on camels. See, this is very cinematic. We're giving people a cinematic explanation for Zorhan using his hands, right? So in the desert, on a horse with no name, or a camel with no name in this case, you don't have a lot of things to use. Like you don't have instruments like forks and knives and spoons. You don't have those. You don't. You just don't. They don't exist in the desert. I don't know why. Don't ask me. I don't make the rules. But you have these kind of, you wear these Lawrence of Arabia stuff. By the way, Lawrence of Arabia, great movie. You ought to check it out if you haven't already. One of the top movies ever made. Anywho, when you're in the desert on a horse or a camel with no name, you got to use your hands for everything. So, Did you know there's a safety protocol for hand use in the desert, Chris?
What is the safety protocol? And believe me, and by the way, Tony knows what he's talking about here, because
I do, unfortunately.
It's a little known fact, Tony, and I'm going to release this, that you were a stunt double for the movie Hidalgo. That's how you know all this stuff.
That's right. That's right. I know these things. I was the horse. So I was the horse. Anyway, so in the desert, on a camel with no name, you only got your hands. So you categorize your hands regarding purpose. Because hey, you know what else is not in the desert, Chris? Water.
Well, except for
water.
Yeah, right.
There's no water in the desert by definition. So it's all coming together here. So Zoran decides to do traditional things. So the reason I'm about to say this, which is I hope people aren't eating their breakfast. So you eat your breakfast with the right hand. So you see him there kind of scooping stuff out. He doesn't care. He's had his hands on the subway. Then he was
that's gross.
Up in Macy's, on the escalator going up and down there. He doesn't care. So he's just eating away. But do you all know what you do with your left hand? Well, your left hand in the desert is for taking care of business. Like if you got to do number 1 or number 2, you have to use number 3.
Oh, hey-yo.
And so there you have it. That's a long way to say this is disgusting. This is disgusting.
You had me. You had
civilized people don't do this. Civilized people don't do this.
Well, you had me at his hands all over the subway. Think about that. I've been on the subway. It is disgusting. I remember once on the subway. Believe me, once on the subway, I went in and the place smelled like cat whiz. And you know why? Because some woman brought her cat, and the cat was like in the cat carrier and whizzed all over it, and she spilled it out onto the seat. This woman, it's disgusting. But anyway, check out the Z-Man, Zoran Mamdani, eating with his hands and yammering on about how great socialism is.
Yeah.
So the third holy grail of taboos in American politics, you have socialism, you have Islam, and then you have Palestine. And you are really going for the trifecta.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Tell me, why is Palestine?
By the way, eat rice with a fork like human beings. This is the opposite of Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio ate pizza with a fork, and this guy wants to be mayor, eats rice with his hands. What is with these people?
Well, I just explained the tradition he's trying to emulate, and it's not a good one.
No, it's gross. It's especially New York City.
Yeah, Zoran and his camel with no name in the desert. Not a good look. Not a good look. So, but back to your point, Chris, and the Patriots. Why on earth would any rational human being, especially college educated human beings, and I'm wearing my alma mater's shirt, Wright State University, this morning. Why would any college graduate vote for a guy who literally has the hygiene habits of roaming tribesmen in the Sahara Desert? Why would he do? Why is that a thing? I don't get it.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, and I can throw about two or three at you right now. One is a lot of these young people come out, and they come out of college. They have dreams of having this big job as a professional activist with their gender studies degree, and they wind up in Starbucks where they actually have to work for at least 5 to 6 hours a day if they can handle a shift that long. I know. You look amazed, Tony. But the fact is that these kids get upset that they have to work, and they realize it's not going to pay any money. They have to pay their loans back, so they want the government to pay their loans back, when, by the way, they should be asking these colleges to suck them in for a refund. We can get into that at another time. But they come out saying, well, I can't afford anything. This guy says the government will pay for everything for you. The rich people, you can get right back at them, and they'll give you everything. And they're going to vote for it. They're not very and I'll keep in mind, these people take social justice degrees and gender studies degrees and ethnic studies degrees because they're not smart. They can't even handle a communications degree. They couldn't handle a journalism degree, which, by the way, both degrees are arguably devalued these days.
They are fragile. They're like little flowers floating in the wind.
Right. They'd never be able to handle a real job. But they come out thinking they're intellectuals because they have some sort of degree in a fake major. And then they're going to find a way to look at. Then they look at Democrats as the smart people and Republicans as dumb because they're using television stereotypes. So they look at Mamdani, who says, "Look at me, I'm nice, I'm in a suit. Get rid of ICE because those mean Republicans are kicking the immigrants out. You hate brown people if you don't vote for me." So these people with their gender ethnic studies degrees thinking, "Oh boy, I don't know what to do. I can't afford my rent. This guy will help us out. And by the way, it'll make me feel good having our own Sadiq Khan here running New York City." And this is the low mentality of the socialist, leftist, Marxist, and at this point, Mamdani Johnson Bass voter. And that's what happens. They're college kids, but it's what kind of degrees and what kind of intellectual capacity are they coming out with?
Yeah. And Sean Lucas is right. You can vote your way into socialism. You can't vote your way out.
Exactly.
Once you're going down that rabbit hole, it requires a full-blown revolution to come back out. It's very dangerous. So,
and Tony, I got one thing for you. I'm very tired of hearing the news media call people without college degrees uneducated. Think about this. Because the idea is, well, then who's educated? These kids that have to have crying rooms because they got a 75 or a 55 on a test. They couldn't go back and study harder the next time. These kids need crying rooms in college. This is preparing anybody for the real world. Yeah,
and we're going to have someone today who taught college. As a matter of fact, I taught a class for him one time at the University of Pennsylvania. Curt Weldon's coming on, right?
Yeah, he's actually ready. We'll get him ready in about a couple minutes. But let's talk about him, because you're right. He'll tell you from the front lines what's been happening. There are a lot of conservative professors. There was a great book back in the 90s by Tom Thibodeau. I think that's his name. His last name was Thibodeau. I read it. It was about education, how it was becoming a PC indoctrination center. This was back in the 90s, and I'm pretty sure it was happening before that. He had the foresight. He was obviously, I heard him on Bob Grant, but
yeah,
I read his book after that, and it was Tom. I believe it was Tom Thibodeau. No, and don't confuse him with the former Knicks coach. The idea was that people that the colleges were really turning into indoctrination centers. They're bad now, but they were bad back then and not getting the attention.
Yeah, well, so not all colleges are created equally, and I know back in the ancient days of the 80s when I went to college. First off, 80s were wonderful. Oh my God, I miss the 80s. Even though we were always threatened by the potential of thermonuclear death, yeah, who cares? It was still fun. But I digress. The idea was when I was going through college that, especially regarding some of the classes that were presented, Rice State University in Dayton has a drama center, like as in they teach people to be actors. Some of them, pretty good, I guess. I don't know. I never went over there. I couldn't get through the door because of all the people wearing leggings all the time. Just saying. We have a nursing center, which several of my friends. Good morning, Burley. Burley's probably watching. Burley is one of them.
I tried that
Burley,
in school too, but my nipple got
Kimberly.
fried.
Kimberly became a nurse. My friend Burley, and then they have a doctor's school, and so they have a really good pre-law program, which I was kind of in and out of for like a minute because they recruited me for their mock trial team, and we won. We won the national championship. Not complaining. Can't complain about winning a national championship, right, Chris? That's a good thing.
No, unless you're a female team with men on it, but that's another story.
But my point is, we were part of a kind of a blue collar community. We're right next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's where the name comes from. But most of the people I know did something. They got degrees. My friend John Castonguay got a communications degree. He got fired from NPR. Oh, can I say that?
Oh,
he got fired a few years ago because he was a conservative. Just saying, they don't like conservatives in NPR. I don't know why, but anyway, my point is, my friends all went on with their college education and did something. They didn't like hang around in the back of Home Depot and complain that the drill sets weren't drilly enough. Just saying. So,
fair enough. And I ended up here with you, and I have a college degree. So
I know. Who'd have thought?
I think that's
I don't. But that's my point. It's like a degree does not make the person. It's what you do with that degree that really defines you. And if you want to be a whiny barista with a master's degree and lesbian Maoist beliefs of those who weave baskets in Argentina, if that's a thing you want to do, knock yourself out. You can talk philosophically about basket weaving with your fellow baristas. I think it's a great thing, don't you?
Right. And our guest is ready. But before I bring our
right.
special guest on, when I went to school at New Paltz University back in the 90s, a major hippie school historically, but still a good one. A good school all around, except for the indoctrination part. You just got to kind of skip through that. There was actually a women's studies curriculum. And one of the classes, Tony, was, get this, one of the classes for women's studies was women with women. They actually had to teach lesbianism, I suppose. And I knew a guy.
Really?
I know this moron, by the way.
You could get a degree in lesbianism? Why didn't they tell me this back in the 80s? Wow.
And I know, I think I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. I knew a guy who actually majored in women's studies. So I asked him, why are you majoring in women's studies? He said, to meet women. Man, was he disappointed. Shall we bring the guest on?
Yeah, well, I don't know if Kurt's going to appreciate following lesbians, but bring on. Good morning, Kurt.
Kurt
Weldon. My friend Curt Weldon's on. Kurt, good morning. Welcome to Wake Up Patriots.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I have to apologize. We lost power here in Pennsylvania 2 days ago, and I'm waiting for the emergency crew to arrive. So that's why.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this.
And I only have to leave for 2 minutes to show them what to do, but I'll come back. But I'm available now. I haven't arrived yet, but I'm expecting.
Good. So anyway, so we're going to start. Let's. My friend Curt did a recent book, which I literally got this week from Amazon, "Awakening the Sleeping Giant." Curt Weldon does that. It's a great book about the empowering of our first responders and those who actually do the hard things of keeping America working and helping protect those who need to be protected. It's a great book. I highly recommend you go out and grab it. And of course, the book which I first met Curt when he was doing this, Countdown to Terror. He and Peter Vincent Price, Dr. Pry did this book with Curt, where they talk about Iran. There's a topic for you, but
it's a great song.
We're here to talk about. Yeah, it's I that's right. But beyond that, we wanted to have Curt come on and talk about some of the things that he and I share, which is, of course, the 9/11 issues, which still have to be resolved. So, Curt, thank you for coming on. Wake up. We have a lot of patriots who are very interested in what you have to say and what's going on. So let's just start off by kind of revisiting the need to do this. So one of the problems I see even now is that there's a lack of resolution of big questions. One of those questions, I inadvertently made a protected disclosure to you when I was asking for money for the Navy. And next thing you know, I'm telling you things about failures, which you suspected, but I think I helped kind of kick off. So why is it that there's such reluctance, even to this day, to allow for a resolution of the 9/11 issues that relate to the fact that so many people died that day, and yet we have not been able to account for what went wrong? Why do you think nobody wants to get to the bottom of that?
Well, I think first of all, it's a pleasure to be on with you. And I think there are two alternatives, and I think either of them are very troubling. One is much more severe than the other. The first is, and as you point out, Tony, when I was vice chairman of the Armed Services Committee, I chaired the oversight subcommittee for all military research, which was at that time about $180 billion a year. And in the 90s, the services were standing up information dominant centers. And I was funding all of them. And the Army's Information Dominance Center, as you know, was being stood up at Fort Belvoir at the Lewa.
And my unit was working with them, Stratus.
And unbeknownst to me, what you were doing, I encountered your group because I would go down to the Lewa to be briefed on this novel approach they were using to understand terrorist threats. And that was data mining and link analysis and new software like Starlight and Spires. And it impressed me. Again, I wasn't ready to your program. I didn't need to be. But having been up at the World Trade Center in '93 and having become friends with the guy that would become the fire chief of New York, Ray Downey, who was a former Marine, we discussed the fact that we needed to integrate the 33 classified systems of intelligence the federal government operated. And when I visited with the Lewa and saw the work you were doing, I went to my friends on the Hill in intelligence, all of them ex-military, because I couldn't trust the agency, to be honest with you. They spun the data that Congress
still can
political conditions. And I asked them to put together a proposal to create a fusion center. And in 1999, they created a proposal to create.
And that's in here. It's in the book that you have that in the book.
The NOAA, National Operation Analysis Hub, policymaker and warfighters tool to deal with emerging transnational terrorist threats. Now, why that was so important to me was in the mid-90s, Steny Hoyer and I co-chaired the Duma-Congress relationship with Russia's parliament. And they called us as we were bombing Belgrade to get Milosevic out and said, we can help you get Milosevic out of power. At that time, the parliament in Russia was against Yeltsin. They came within 8 votes of impeaching him. But you have to understand, at that time, Yeltsin was our guy. We were siphoning money out of Russia left and right. Yeltsin was the crony for the Clintons, funneling money into the Clintons. And so Yeltsin's daughter, Tatiana Dychenko, the huge crook that she is today, was involved with American interests. And so America, deep state, did not want Yeltsin in any way embarrassed. We actually ran Yeltsin's re-election campaign. And so the Duma said to me, and Steny, we have information that that American institutions are stealing money from our IMF and World Bank funds. Will you help us? We agreed. And Steny Hoyer and I took the lead. We brought the Duma deputies over to Washington. They testified privately before committees. They gave us information about U.S. institutions. Then it was our turn to take a delegation to Moscow. I was going over to meet the troops in Iraq. And I said, we'll stop in Moscow for 2 nights. And I asked for a meeting with the prosecutor general for Russia. His name was Skaratov, because he was also against Yeltsin. He was on the side of the Duma that wanted Yeltsin out, that came within 8 votes of impeaching him. And a month before my trip, Skaratov came out and said he was ready to indict Yeltsin's daughter, Tatiana. Yeltsin fired him. A week later, the Federation Council, their Senate, reinstated him. Yeltsin fired him a second time. The week before my trip stopping in Moscow, Yeltsin fired him a third time. So I said to the State Department, get me a meeting with Skaratov. I want to know what he knows. When we got to Moscow, and they met us at the Vnukovo airport, my delegation, I think we had Navy escorts on that trip. The State Department control officer said, Congressman, we got all your meetings set, but we couldn't get your meeting with Skaratov. I said, why not? Well, we couldn't arrange it. But we're only there 2 nights. So I'm very disappointed, but I have my own contacts, as Steny and I did. I set the meeting up myself through the Russians, directly with Skaratov. We met him that Monday morning. As I went to the hotel to meet him, there was a person in the room already that I didn't know. And I said, can I help you? And he showed me his State Department credentials. And he said, I was sent here to help you facilitate the meeting. I said, who sent you here? He said, the ambassador. I said, well, you're here to facilitate a meeting you couldn't arrange. He said, Congressman, I'm here to help you. So I sat him next to me. And I began the meeting by apologizing to Skaratov for the late notice of the meeting. I said, you see, our embassy doesn't know how to reach you. And he said to me in front of the members, oh, Congressman, I talk to your embassy almost every day. I'm feeding them information that's for your FBI about the facts we have about U.S. involvement in stealing money from our IMF and World Bank. I said, really? I said, do they have all your he said, they have all my contact information. I said, did anyone contact you that we wanted to meet with you? He said, no one called. He said, but late last night, there was a message on my answering machine to call your embassy this morning, and I haven't had a chance to call them yet. Well, then I knew we were lied to.
Yep.
I adjourned the meeting temporarily, left Skaratov and this person in the room, and I took the members in a neighboring room. And I said, we've been lied to by our government. The members of Congress, both parties, said, what do you want to do, Chris? I want to kick the guy out of the meeting. But I'm not going to do it unless you agree. If it's not unanimous, I'm not doing it. They all agreed. I went back in the room. I pounded my fist on the table. And I said, with no disrespect to you, sir, I just met you. We don't want you in the meeting. Please leave. The guy sat there. Mr. Cool. I'm not leaving. I said, look, buddy, I set this meeting up. Finally, he leaves. I find out later. That man, Stephen Kappas, was the station chief in Moscow.
Yeah.
Who later became the deputy director of the CIA. The CIA did not want us to know in the Congress that U.S. institutions were involved in stealing massive funds.
So,
and as a result of that, a year later, the Justice Department indicted officials from a bank in New York for stealing $5 billion. I can tell you, based on contacts I have in the Secret Service, the amount was 4 times that amount of money.
So, Curt, let me put some framing on this, because one of the things that you were, I'm going to give you full credit, an anti-deep state warrior before anybody knew the deep state existed, because this is, I think, appropriate that we're talking one day after the end of USAID, and I think we would agree, USAID became an extension of CIA and these policies, and basically you just outlined how U.S. government officials were being enriched by wrongdoing, hiding in plain sight, pretending they were doing good. Same thing USAID was doing, pretending to be doing good, yet they're funding these left-wing radical causes and people like Jamie Gorelick, basically doing everything they can. Yeah, right there. They ceased operation. Good riddance. But my point is, Curt, CIA and these guys were doing this stuff, and you started finding out about this, and essentially what I think you're saying here is that they're still active today trying to suppress the information regarding 9/11. Is that a good summary?
Absolutely 100% true. In fact, the way I really got to know more about what you were doing is when the Russians contacted Steny and I and offered to get Milosevic out of office. I didn't tell any Republicans. I didn't want to cause even Clinton was the president. I didn't want to cause a problem. I didn't tell the speaker. I went to 3 Democrats. I went to Jack Murtha. I went to Maurice Hinchey, and I went to Steny. Steny took me down to the State Department. We had lunch with the Deputy Secretary of State, Strobe Talbot. And Steny told Strobe in front of me what had happened. And he said, Strobe, they want Curt and I to bring a delegation to Belgrade. The Russians can get Milosevic to step down, just like the U.S. wants. I said, I'll do it. I don't want any, I just want the State Department to approve it. He said, I don't think it's a good idea. So Steny said, how about if Curt goes to a neutral country, Vienna? And Strobe said, we'll support that. I came back to Washington, to the Capitol Hill. I wrote a letter to all the members of the House. I got 10 people to join me, 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. Bernie Sanders joined me. Dennis Kucinich joined me. Neil Abercrombie and 5 Republicans. I got the Foreign Policy Council, Herman Purcher's group to staff it. We took Colin Powell's nephew, Andre Lewis, with us. We flew over. But before we left, the Russians called me and said, we're bringing a Serb with us. I said, why? Well, we want to make sure that Milosevic will accept the solution that we bring to end this. And I said, well, I don't know any Serbs. Well, here's the name. I hung up the phone. I called Tenet, and I got along very well with George Tenet. I said, George, he had called me down to his office when he went in. I took Peter Pry with me at the top floor of the CIA headquarters. And he said, with his direct reports in front of me, whatever this man wants about Russia, you give him, because we want to help him. And Congressman Weldon, when you don't get what you want, you come to me. That was the respect I had from Tenet. So I said, George, I need a brief on this Serbian. I don't know him, and we're going over with the State Department support to this meeting. He said, give me until Friday. When I hung the phone up, I called your people at the Information Dominance Center. I said, can you guys do me a favor off record? Absolutely. I said, this is off the record. Can you run me a profile of a Serbian family? Sure. How long do we have? I said, how long do you need? They said, can you give us 30 minutes? In 30 minutes, your team gave me 10 pages. Yeah, when George Tenet came back on Friday, he gave me 1 paragraph. I knew at that time we had a problem.
No, that's a big problem.
So that became the basis of the formation of the recommendation for a NOAA. We went up with the information we had from the Army's Information Dominance Center. We knew about this family, who I later found out, by the way, was on the payroll of the CIA. The family that I met with.
By the way, this is all Curt documents this more in more detail in the book. I'm looking through it right now. Everything Curt's saying.
Plus, I have an archives, and it's all done with interviews. So they can kill me, Tony. They can kill me, but they're not going to stop this. Yeah, and the bulk of the scumbags that did this are out. Yeah, the bulk of the scumbags. There are good people in the agency, and you know that. I have good friends in the agency today. There are scumbags who made money hiding like a bunch of cowards, and those scumbags have got to be outed. They're making money today off the lives and the backs of dead soldiers who they got America to commit to conflicts around the world for false reasons. We went over to Vienna. We solved the problem, and we got Milosevic to step down. At the same time we were there, I talked to the former ambassador to Russia on the phone, because the Democrats who were with me, Dennis Kucinich and Maurice Hinchey, called the White House.
I love Dennis. Dennis and I are friends. I love Dennis.
They said they want Curt to bring the delegation to Belgrade. Milosevic will step down right now and give the 3 POWs to our delegation. And I said, we're not going into Belgrade unless the White House gives approval, even though it's Clinton. They put me on the phone with Tom Pickering, the former ambassador to Russia, Deputy Secretary of State. I told him the story. He said, Congressman, we don't think it's safe for you to go to Belgrade. We've got a delegation there right now that's leaving, and it's headed by Jesse Jackson. I said, Tom, you told me that no one was allowed in Belgrade. Now you're telling me you have Jesse Jackson's delegation in Belgrade.
Yeah.
That's an automatic screw up right there.
Nothing but lies. Nothing but lies.
Tom Pickering was the guy who covered up Benghazi, for those who forgot. Just saying.
Well, his story will be told.
Yeah. So
he
Curt,
made millions.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. And I think this, I was talking to a very close colleague. Well, we'll just call him Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Blaine and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like, Curt, I think a lot of us signed up, like you, like me, for the right reasons. General Holt. And when we come to find that organizations which we thought were supposed to be above reproach, doing the hard work of either defending America, working to fund organizations which are supposed to be invested in protecting America, basically doing things that they say is in the best. It turns out they're corrupt. They're all corrupt. They're all in this. I'm just going to say it, deep state boys club, who get together. They plot these things out. They go after people like you and me. We're just trying to do our job. We're just trying to speak the truth, and somehow speaking the truth becomes something of a dangerous thing, to the point of where they have to destroy people. And people remember, Curt, they went after you right before your election in 2000. Was it 2006, right? When they went after, or 2005?
They didn't even have the guts to come after me. They're such cowards. They're such they're such
went after your daughter.
And I'm going to call them out. They're scumbag cowards. They didn't come after me. They went to my daughter's house. They raided my daughter's house. And you know what? That was 3 weeks before my election. They never talked to my daughter, ever. No one. All they wanted was the photo op of the FBI from D.C. carrying records out of my daughter's house. Those scumbags that caused that raid, I know who they are. I know, and it's not just me. They can kill me. I have this all recorded. I have it all documented. Now, most of those scumbags are out of the agencies. But they didn't hurt me. They hurt my family. They ruined my daughter's life, and my son died a few years later because of what happened. That's not America. I'm not sitting on some big mound of cash right now, and I'm still paying my mortgage on my house. This country is not in control of these people who think they can do what they want and get away with it and remain anonymous and laugh at all of us. Laugh at those dead people, those 343 firefighters who died at 9/11, those 2,977 responders and civilians who were killed at 9/11, and those 2,500 soldiers who were sent to Afghanistan and came home in body bags when bin Laden wasn't in Afghanistan. He was being protected in Iran and Baluchistan. That's the outrage that's got to end.
So I think that's the thing. So a lot of folks, by the way, Curt, people love you. Just in the chat, people are
going crazy.
Very, they're going crazy about how important this is. So I think, and I get shivers thinking about how we got to continue to do this, because we do. And I think it's been frustrating to see people who are now recognizing we were lied to about JFK, we were lied to about RFK, we were lied to about the Gulf of Tonkin. There's all these things that go back decades that people are now coming aware of. But this is something that's real. This is something I think is more important than figuring out what happened during 1962. And the reason it's more important is because, Curt, some of these people we're talking about, they're still in power. There's still people in the system which have great influence and ability to chart the path forward. And I don't know if President Trump fully understands how important it is to get to the bottom of this, because I've told this to the late Bernie Kerik, God rest his soul. I've told this to Rudy Giuliani. I've told the people who were their current enemies are the enemies we faced off with 20 years ago, and they're still in the system. I think that's why it's important.
There are good people around Trump, but they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
This whole process started in the 90s. It started under the scumbag Clintons, and they're both scumbags. They were, when Bill Clinton allowed Mena Airport to be used as a jumping off point to run guns and other activities for the Contras in Nicaragua. That's when Bill Clinton became the fair-haired child of the agency. And from then on, the Clintons were protected. All the things they did, the money stolen. I mean, talk about Russia. Bill Clinton got $500,000 for one speech from Mayor Lushkov's wife in Moscow. And you want to talk about Hillary Clinton, the scumbag she is? She had the audacity to criticize Trump and make up the story about the election. Well, get the copy of the Time magazine from summer of 1996. If you don't have it, Tony, I'll give it to you to give to your readers. The front cover is Yeltsin. And the whole inside story is the secret plan of Bill Clinton to reelect Boris Yeltsin.
Yeah.
We reelected Boris Yeltsin. His popularity in Moscow had dropped down to 20% because he was a corrupt drunk. But he was our corrupt drunk.
Right.
The Clinton administration and our deep state were siphoning money out of Yeltsin left and right. So when they knew he would lose, we sent over a team, and it's documented by Time magazine. We sent over a team. They stayed in the presidential hotel, and they ran his campaign. And Hillary Clinton had the audacity to try to blame Donald Trump for Russia. What a scumbag she is. She should go hide her face. She should be in jail right now. She's a traitor to the country.
I couldn't find the Time cover, gentlemen, so I used this one from Spy magazine. I thought that would be a little more appropriate. Yeah. I know it's superimposed, but hey.
I think it's cute. Hillary is cute like a rattlesnake. You know,
July 1996, front cover, Time magazine. I have the original. I can send it to you. The picture is Boris Yeltsin, and you'll see the byline. The secret plan to reelect Boris Yeltsin. We ran the election for Boris Yeltsin because he was our president, so we could steal money from Russia. That led to what we have today.
Yeah, and by the way, Boris Yeltsin picked a little-known, basically bagman or a strong man named Vladimir Putin come out of Petersburg to be his deputy. Just saying.
And what Putin had to do when Yeltsin tapped Putin, he made him commit to do one thing. The first presidential act of Putin was to issue a blanket pardon for life for Tatiana Dychenko, Yeltsin's wife. Tatiana Dychenko, who the left tried to blame on Trump, could never be prosecuted because Putin gave her blanket immunity. That was not done by Trump. That was done by Yeltsin because it was to protect his daughter. The facts are all there.
Yeah. So Curt, the people want to know, and I think we do too. So we've had a number of things. You and I were just on PBD. Well, for those who missed it, go see it. We go through a detailed. Our friend and my fellow whistleblower, Eric Kleinsmith, was on there. I think it's important for people to educate themselves. Also, you were on with Tucker Carlson. You did an amazing job. And there's I think it was over 1 million views of that thing you did with Tucker. And you've spoken to a lot of folks about what's next. So I know Senator Ron Johnson has been talking about picking this up. And there's other organizations involved I don't want to mention here. They'll speak for themselves. There's other investigations still ongoing. One of the investigative entities, who I can't mention because they're kind of still working, have verified and validated everything we're saying here and more. They have new information which validates and expands on what Curt's been saying regarding CIA corruption, FBI corruption. I'll leave it to them to speak for themselves. There's reasons why we can't speak for them, but I'm in contact with them. Curt knows who they are. But Curt, will the members of I know we've got the big, beautiful bill. I don't want to get into that this minute. But will Senator Ron Johnson have the courage to push forward? Because he said publicly he wants to do this. Do you think Ron's going to move forward and do something to get new hearings on this issue?
Well, Ron's a man of integrity, and I've met with him now 3 times and his staff. He wants to pursue and is committed to a hearing, which I think he'll do around the timing of 9/11 in September.
Good.
And what he wants to do is what I suggested. Don't make any accusations, Ron. You can't back up, and I won't do that. But simply ask the questions that need to be asked.
Exactly.
There are questions that have not been answered. Zelikow, without any doubt, and I will state this and take a lie detector test. It's 1,000% that he and Gorelick covered up in the 9/11 commission. I don't blame the commissioners. They weren't informed. Some of them are good people and friends of mine. John Lehman, Tim Romer. I worked with them. Carla Maloney. No, the staffers, the Zelikow, the same scumbag that had them take your book and buy it and destroy it. Zelikow and Gorelick controlled the content, working with Dieter Snell. They controlled the content of the 9/11 Commission report. It's a total whitewash.
Exactly.
And so, by the way, that's why we need a new presidential commission, Tony. That's what Trump needs to do.
Well, as we all know, one of the things they went after me on was my meeting with Zelikow at Bagram, where we talk about my meeting with Dr. Zelikow. By the way, people don't know this. Did you know, Chris, that Dr. Zelikow has a degree in dental proctology? Did you know that? That's dental proctologist.
Right. Yeah.
But,
Same school as
just
Joe
like
Biden,
Joe
right?
Biden.
Yeah.
His ties were to rice. His ties were to rice. None of us knew that at the time.
Yeah. So, and by the way, this is all circling back. Curt's book, my book, these are all threads which have been essentially in the tapestry of the truth that we have to put together, right? I think the tapestry of the truth is what we're trying to do here, right? Get the pieces.
Well, and Tony, they tried to this in the 9/11 Commission. What irritates me the most is after they tried to ruin your career, and I went to the House floor and raised hell for an hour, saying it was it was worse than Watergate. When they in the report they said the Able Danger was insignificant. Then we find out. Then we have the book, Horse Soldiers, New York Times bestseller, Hollywood movie, written by a retired special ops general, Keith Lambert, who I've never met. And on page 22, I think it is, or 27, General Lambert puts the ultimate hole right in the middle of Zelikow's chest. And he says, when asked, what were your thoughts, General, when 9/11 happened? And he said, within seconds, I knew who had done the attack. I knew it involved Muhammad Atta because I had been briefed on a top secret Army intelligence program. None of that's in the book. None of that. I mean, in the report. Because Zelikow was a master at lying and cover up.
Yeah, right there it is at the bottom of the page there. You guys can go check it out for yourself. Page 27 of Horse Soldiers or 12 Strong. They changed the title for the movie. Yeah, they do that. So to Curt's point, though, this is something that, again, we have the pieces. It's like you're going to have to put it together like a quilt, because one of the things that the deep state is masterfully gifted in is diffusing the truth. They pile on the propaganda and lies for purposes of distraction. And man, oh man, have we had distraction after distraction regarding this issue. So, for one more time, Doug Stanton, Horse Soldiers. It's also the movie 12 Strong. So it's a good book. Doug's a good guy. Doug endorsed my book, just saying. So, he read my book and said, holy cow, it relates to what he wrote too. And it's on page 27 of Horse Soldiers.
Within seconds, he knew who had done the attack. Now, here's the 9/11 Commission coming out years later, and they're saying, well, we don't really know what happened. And Able Danger.
Oh, they think they can tell us that. That's right.
It's a big, America deserves, we're not a bunch of stupid people in America. And they can only pull the wool over our eyes so long. And then we've got to wake up and say, stop this crap. This is not what the country's all about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. We have to get back to basics. And you've been doing a lot with first responders. And Curt, my oldest son, Alexander, is a fireman and first responder in Arlington. And man, oh man, people who have that skill set and the bravery to run into fires, to do those hard things, and like those who ran into the 9/11 towers, deserve accountability. There's a great deal of information you put out recently relating to, and this was in the PBD interview, where you have the full accounting of these firemen rushing in to the World Trade Center trying to get to the fires. And I'll just say it's curious. This is why Ron Johnson has to ask the hard question, that these brave men run up those stairs, literally tens of dozens of stairs, up to the top of the World Trade, and they find, hey, there's fires here we can put out. Looks like it's under control, and next thing you know, the towers, they're gone. So there's something really strange.
Tony, any of your viewers who contact you, I will give them, and give it to you, a copy of the firefighter-produced film called Bravo 7, which is produced by firefighters, not by Hollywood. They can get it for free. But in that film at the end, they need to watch it to the end. They will hear the audio. They will hear the audio tapes of Battalion Chief Oreo Palmer. Battalion Chief Oreo Palmer, family man, 3 kids, takes his crew, each carrying 40 pounds of gear. They take the elevator to the 40th floor. They get off. they start walking up the stairs carrying their gear. This is immediately after the towers hit. They're looking to get people out. As he goes up each 5 floors, he radios back. We're on the 50th floor. It's okay. We're going up. We're on the 60th floor. It's okay. We're going up. We're on the 70th floor. It's okay. And then you hear Oreo Palmer, battalion chief, say, as clear as day, we're on the 78th floor, the floor of impact where the plane hit. We've got 2 fires, and we can handle them. 1 minute later, the entire building collapses. Now, I've been a firefighter all my life. That's not what, there's never been a high-rise building in the world ever come down from fire. Never. That building didn't come down because of the planes. It didn't come down because of fire. And we're not going to allow Oreo Palmer's last words to go into vapor without us fully giving him the integrity and the support to learn why he died trying to save all those people, those 2,977 people that perished in the World Trade Center towers. The firefighters deserve better. And I'm not going to back down to any scumbag in the intelligence community. Let's put all the intel people on the top floor of the tower, and then we'll bomb the tower. Let's put them up on top.
So one of the awakenings I've had in all of this, and Curt, I don't know if you remember that first meeting we had. I was a babe in the woods. I was sent over to talk to you and say, hey, we want to reestablish a capability that existed before 9/11 that we thought was effective. And then you ask me the hard questions about, well, what happened? And I tell you the same information that's now, documented in my book about what we were doing in Able Danger. But with that said, it's shocking how many of us were naive to the idea that fellow Americans could be so evil to perpetrate and allow for, even if you only say, well, it happened and people weren't held accountable for the intelligence failures. I think it goes beyond that. Curt, I think people ought to be prosecuted over the failures here. I think out of Ron Johnson's hearings, which I do believe are going to happen, there needs to be referrals, investigative referrals to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. What do you think? Do you think that we should still pursue some level of criminality of the failures?
Absolutely. In fact, I will support charging people as traitors. You cannot make a decision that deliberately kills other innocent Americans.
I agree.
That's not America. But the point is that Congress can do hearings. But having been in Congress for 20 years, the only viable solution is President Donald Trump has got to appoint not a congressional commission, not a bullshit Zelikow commission, a presidential task force or commission of people with integrity, not lobbyists, not members of Congress, people who have intelligence, who have the fortitude, who have the technical background to analyze the buildings, the architecture, the remote operation of airplanes, the use of accelerants, the use of explosives. All of that needs to be investigated. And that's the only way we're going to get the answers about what happened at 9/11. And by this 9/11 anniversary, I hope the President Trump makes that decision.
So that's it. That's the key. We got to get a group of qualified, committed, and fearless individuals to go where the information takes them, because that's been part of the problem, Curt. You and I both have faced this, and God bless you for allowing me to at least get on the radar to say, hey, there's something wrong here. And I know this is going to shock the Patriots. I had no idea I was a whistleblower. Curt, God bless him, takes me up to meet with Speaker of the House. Oh my goodness.
Hastert. Was it Hastert?
Hastert, Denny Hastert. I had no idea that what I was doing was somehow going to be a difficult thing, because I was just told by the Army, tell them what they want to know and tell them the truth. Like, okay, that's my job. But I had no idea the controversy this would cause. That's how kind of naive I was, Curt, to the way things are. With that said, now, we can't afford to be naive. We have to be courageous. We have to be aggressive. And I think I would love the opportunity with you to sit down with President Trump and just say, hey, these are the things that have to be resolved, because I think, and I'm saying this on the record, it's a cancer. That cancer is still in the system. That cancer will destroy President Trump's legacy if it's left to its own devices, because these people are still there and there's 3.5 years left to go. So we've got to get to the bottom of this soon. And I hope we can do this together.
Well,
so,
they tried to
Curt,
kill him. The same core group
I
of
know,
people
same
tried
people,
to kill him.
same people.
And they don't want him
people.
in there. What we've got to do is continue to push. And in the end, that's what our country's all about. 200 years ago, the Patriots fought for this country, and 250 years ago, and they stood up to the anarchy that was taking place, to the rule of law by people that were not making good decisions. It's our turn now, and if we don't stand up and counter this, it's going to get worse, and we're going to lose total control. And I want to say this, Tony, and you know this well. There are good people in intelligence. I have good friends. Jim Woolsey remains a good friend of mine. George H.W. Bush, the former head of the CIA, did a tribute to me that he's never done for any other member of Congress. After I left off, after they raided my daughter's house and never talked to her, 3 months later, in front of 2,000 leaders in Washington, George H.W. Bush, the former head of the CIA, does a tribute to me saying, Congressman Weldon, you're the kind of leader that America needs. They need to shove that right up their rear ends. They don't have those kind of comments about their work in the intelligence community. That's what George Bush said publicly. We need to get to the bottom of what's going on in America. Donald Trump's the right guy to do it. But unfortunately, the people around him in some cases don't know what they don't know. And Tony, people like you have to be able to speak the truth to people like President Trump.
Yes, sir. Well, and thank you for speaking the truth. And we're going to have you back. The Patriots love you. We love you. We'll continue to work this. And Curt, God bless you and your family. It's great that we're this is our last program before this 4th of July. And I hope to have you back if you're willing to come back in later this month.
And
July.
let me say this, Tony, another point you need to know.
Yes, sir.
I have a lot of friends that are Democrats. And a couple of them have texted me, and I've texted them. I won't mention their names. I don't want to embarrass them, but I've saved the text. One of them was a Democrat colleague of mine, very powerful. And today he's the chairman of a very powerful Democrat organization in America. And I text him a copy of the interview with Tucker. And within 2 minutes, this is what he texts back. Curt, you were right then, and you're right now. That's one of the most prominent Democrat leaders in America, a good friend of mine. A second prominent leader gave me a text saying, you're the one that broke through the fog to show us what all members of Congress need to understand, how they've been abusing the system. And the third, and I want to relate this story because it's important. I always respected John Sununu. He was the chief of staff to George H.W. Bush. And when I left office, John Sununu, we met in his office, and he said to me, you know, Congressman, you were a great member, but you made one fundamental mistake. I said, what was that, John? He said, when you came to this city, you're supposed to stay on one rail or the other. You went down the middle and took on both rails, and that's why you're not here. I said, well, John, that's okay. That was my job. But when I did the Tucker show, I sent the Tucker show to John Sununu because I have his email address. I said, John, I hope you're doing well. You're always one of my heroes. You have a great family. Your sons are involved in politics. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And by the way, here's a copy of the show I did with Tucker. Now, you know what that Tucker show, what I said. And John Sununu wrote me back and said, Congressman, you did a fantastic job on the Tucker show.
So one of the things I learned during the time I was working with you first time, Curt, I was in the green room at Fox News after this all went public. And Senator Trent Lott is sitting across the room from me. And he looks over at me. He says, Colonel Shaffer, I hope you don't mind. I've been watching you. I have a couple of observations. And he looks at me and he says, first off, you've learned this the hard way. It's never good to be right ahead of time in this town. And Curt, you found that out too. It's never good to be right ahead of time in D.C. So with that, we'll leave that for today. We'll have Curt back. Curt, God bless you and your family.
Have a good July 4th, and God bless America.
God bless America, and God bless you, Curt, and we'll see you soon. Patriots, we'll see you next week. And I promise we'll get the information on the Mossad woman on too. Yes, Chris, go ahead.
I have two questions one question for both you, and keep in mind, I guess Kurt's gone. So I have a question for you before we go.
Well, we got to go anyway. We're over time, but yes,
First off, Tracy and Tracy Shone and George are going to have Trevor Loudon back on tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of fun. Got to ask you, Who is the fashion consultant for Lisa Murkowski anyway?
You know, I think that's a guy that lives on the grade of the subway at Fifth and Broadway. I think she goes up there and sees him. You know, he's the guy. He's that white guy that he's got like a full beard, and he's always got these gray blankets. I think it's the grade at the Fifth and Lexington. I'm sorry, Fifth and Lexington in New York. That's where. But he's very good, and she does it well. That's a good look for her. Just saying.
Oh, all right. The blanket look. I suppose
the
Lindsey
blanket
Graham might be a little jealous.
No, it's the homeless chic. Remember they used to have heroin chic. Now it's homeless chic. It's good. It's cool. It's all good.
I like it. All right.
It's all good. We got to go. Patriots, thank you for being here. We had a great show. So yes, I'll try to get the Mossad lady on. I thought Curt was more important than a Mossad lady. Just saying. So we'll get to it. But we really do sincerely wish you all a happy and productive 4th of July. Well, this country was founded on people of the bravery of Curt Weldon and others, and we're going to continue to pursue this. Just saying. So,
excelente. So I can speak Spanish.
Excelente. Yeah. Well, you can go hang out with Juan, the guy that sits next to the guy at the Fifth in Lexington. The Juan is more. He's a homeless guy also, but he gets a lot of money from FEMA. FEMA gives him money. Yeah, he lives in a hotel, but he begs anyway. Just saying.
I just figured it would get me around an alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So well, we should have George, if you're listening, go to check it out. Right there he is. Great show. Thank you. Thanks, George.
Yes.
You need to go check out the alligator Alcatraz for us.
Why not? Get a photo op with Wally Gator. All good.
That's right. And by the way, did you know that they're going to send the guy that does gerbils there? Because gerbils are a good supplement for alligators.
That's a gerbil Alcatraz. That would be somewhere in California.
That's right. So, all right, we got to go. Have a great 4th. We'll see you on Monday.